XDefiant's open beta session kicks off this upcoming week, and with it, it's going to be a shortened window of time to play, but also will likely be the last time to play until the game launches. So today, I want to run down everything you should know here ahead of the XDefiant open session to get you fully ready for what's upcoming and so you don't miss a single thing. As we go along, drop your thoughts down below. Are you looking forward to jumping into the XDefiant open session? Drop your thoughts, but if you enjoy the video, do me a favor and drop a like on it, and if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing to stay up to date with all things XDefiant and even more FPS content. And finally, make sure you check out my friends over at G-Fuel for 30% off certain items like the Hype Sauce tubs in the month of June, but more on them in a bit. For now, let's jump into it. So first and foremost, when is this open session and when can you end up playing the game? It's a short one, so you don't want to miss out. The way Ubisoft talks, it kind of makes it sound like the launch of the game, though, will be a lot closer to the end date of this open session. So thankfully, you might not have to wait too long if you can't get your hands on it this week. And also, given that it's free to play for both this open session and the full game, bright side is there won't be any barrier of entry. Now, for everyone to play, it starts on the 21st here at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. in the UK, and elsewhere in the world comparable with the time chart seen on screen right now. However, there is a bit of an extra added playtime for those that had taken part in the closed session a few months back in May. For players who took part in that, you're actually able to play 24 hours earlier, starting on Tuesday, June 20th, so definitely a nice little, hey, welcome back type of bonus. Now, the open session will start at those points and go until Friday, June 23rd at 11 p.m. Pacific time, 2 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. in the UK, 8 a.m. CEST. So, like I said, a much shorter timetable compared to the closed session, which we saw that lasted roughly about 2 weeks' time. Now, for those that are interested in playing, you can play it on PC, PlayStation 5, or Xbox Series X or S. Last generation is not supported just yet, but as we detailed a few days ago, it is something that the developers are aiming here to be coming at some point. However, that's going to be something geared towards post-launch, so as to not take away from the mainline development of the current generation at all. So, okay, you have some free time to kill during that time frame of when it's live. You have one of those platforms, if not multiple of those platforms that it's supported on. How can you access the open beta? Well, there's two ways here. Number one, firstly, if you already played the closed session here, you can just simply update or reinstall the application here. If you still have it on your PlayStation or your PC, you can just simply update that, but you can also pre-download it again if you were already a part of that closed beta session. And that said, the second way to take part in this is that if you were not somebody that played it in that closed beta session, you won't need to register this time around. It'll just be a tad longer of a wait here for the download to show up for you, but it'll be an open session, so you can check your store for PlayStation, Xbox, or Ubisoft Connect to see when you can end up downloading that. And talking about downloading, preloading, updating, and all that kind of stuff, the preload right now should be live on PC for sure. Roughly about 30 gigabytes on PC. It opened up on the 16th. I've already installed my update file. It's just now time gated until that 20th. But on console for PlayStation 5, again, if you were part of that first play session a few months back, you can update your game application if you did not delete it off your hard drive just yet, or you can reinstall to gain access to the open session from your PlayStation library. For those on Xbox that were a part of that closed beta session, unfortunately, there's one extra step here at this, where you'll need to uninstall the closed beta entirely to reinstall the open sessions application. Mark Rubin took to Twitter to mention that it's just a thing with Xbox and Microsoft's databasing that because it's a different title ID, it requires a whole different application and thus download. So just an extra step for those. And again, if you have not taken part in that closed beta session, it'll just be a little bit of time before you can end up downloading it. Like my PlayStation account doesn't have access to it, so for me, it just says to wishlist or to follow the game. But in a little bit of time, should be available here to download. And again, unlike the closed beta, if you are a first-time player, there is no required registration with Ubisoft. You can simply download and play the game from your PlayStation, Xbox, or PC. Now, that said, as for the content offering here and what you can expect to see within XDefiant's open session, specifically speaking, nothing so far has been detailed that I've found in regards to content offering for the open session regarding maps, modes, and all. But if I'm guessing, it's the same, if not a bit more than what we ended up having on offer in the closed session back in May. That, for reference, was the maps of Arena, Attica Heights, Dumbo, Echelon, Emporium, Liberty, Mayday, Meltdown, Midway, Noodleplex, Pueblito, Showtime, Times Square, and Zoo, with the modes of Domination, Occupy, Hotshot, Escort, and Zone Control, with potentially another ranked playtest in there at some point, as well as the factions of Libertad, Echelon, Cleaners, Phantoms, and DedSec, which we do actually know a little bit about the DedSec further, because that was a locked, unlocked faction in the closed session, but it's going to be an unlockable faction here within the full launch of the game. And as detailed in a blog post for the open session, Ubisoft detailed that during the open session, players can complete a challenge of tasking you to get 125,000 XP to permanently unlock DedSec as a faction for day one on full launch. If you don't do that, totally fine. I'd imagine there's an additional challenge to unlock the faction later with the launch of the full game. But if you want it, like the moment you boot up the game, there is that challenge to complete within the open session. Now, real quickly before I continue, make sure to check out my friends over at G Fuel for 20% off all items with code espresso all the time. But for the month of June, 30% off certain things like tubs of hype sauce, hibiscus tea, MS melon, and things like starter kits as well. So if you guys haven't tried G Fuel before, now's a great time to start. Again, with those starter kits discounted, and those tubs, can't go wrong with any of those. Hype sauce is one of my personal favorites. Had it most of the week so far. Switched up today back to my favorite of the Morbius nectarine flavor, but can't go wrong with any of that kind of stuff. If you're interested in learning more about the 30% off discounts or anything that G Fuel has on offer, check the link in the description below and use code espresso for 20% off your order all the time, but 30% off those special items in June as well. For now, let's get back to the open session. So if all the content is relatively the same, well, what's the reasoning for this open session in general? Well, there's two main reasons here for this. Number one, to get more hands-on playtime. The first playtest a few months ago was something that was a closed beta. So you had to register for it, and it was kind of the luck of the draw on if you got in or not. A lot of people did, but also a lot of people didn't. I saw a ton of people in the comments say they couldn't get a code here, even though they registered on their platform of choice, which of course is incredibly upsetting if you were looking to try it out. So now with this one, it's going to be an open session where anyone can jump in so long as they download the game and try it out. No waiting around for a code to be sent, no pay to entry, nothing like that. That's the number one reason here. Get more hands-on and more player feedback. But number two, it's stated that there are significant updates coming from the closed beta to this open session, so kind of a intermediary point to test out things between the closed beta and the full launch upcoming. So tying in perfectly with getting more hands-on playtime, it's a larger hands-on demo to see how every new aspect runs here, including new netcode, new server stability, new console controller experiences and aim assist settings, input latency adjustments for PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 5 controllers, 120 Hz support for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X support, among other things. So absolutely a massive reason as to why you'd hold another playtest here of the game, and again, potentially maybe very close to the launch itself. But with that considered, there are a lot of things we're going to break down here, maybe tomorrow, maybe on Monday, where we're going to be talking in depth about some of the patch notes here, changes from beta to open session here with this. So we'll keep you in the loop with all that, but just so as to not get bogged down by specifics, that's some of the big stuff they're going to be testing here within this open session. Now, beyond that, there are some additional benefits here to consider. Firstly, some of your stuff from the closed beta actually will end up transferring to this open session and then beyond. Now, that's not going to be things like your stats or your level progression or anything like that. Instead, your cosmetics and Twitch drops will carry over from the closed beta to the open beta session, and then again, the full launch of the game later on down the line. But if you ended up getting one of those skins from the level progression and the unlocks that were permanent with the battle pass with the closed session, and then also the Twitch drops that will then carry over elsewhere, you can use that again in this sort of intermediary test. So definitely nice to see. Beyond that, the final thing that I want to touch on in regards to the open session itself is the topic of giving feedback. They already stated that they want to hear everybody's feedback on Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, Discord, wherever their socials may be. They want to hear that feedback. They want to see any bugs, any issues that you may have so they can iron those out. They want to hear your positive and negative feedback. And the way Mark Rubin has been replying to everybody that I've seen on Twitter, it's pretty nice to see that, again, they really do genuinely mean that they want to see your feedback. So maybe we end up seeing some adjustments made to the core gameplay if there's a communal not a huge fan moment where something isn't all that great. Maybe it gets changed for the full launch of the game. Maybe it's just something that irons out and makes the game even better, like we've come to expect, with that baseline of reporting bugs and everything to eventually see that stuff fixed. But make sure that if you do jump in and take part in this open session, that you're giving feedback where you can end up giving it. This is your opportunity to end up getting your voice heard in the development here of this game, and I think that's great. Now, beyond that, before we wrap everything up, going forward here, let's talk a little bit about the future post-open session. Of course, the launch is said to be sometime this summer, though unspecified, but again, the way all the messaging has kind of been lately, it almost makes me seem like this is going to be way sooner than we expect here. I have no insight into that. I could be entirely wrong. Maybe it is something that ends up being the very end of the summer, like right before the season change. But with the messaging, it almost seems like we might see this here this time next month, maybe a month and a half from now. But right now, just know that we will see this relatively soon here. And the nice part, again, the whole thing is going to be free to play. So if you like what you see in gameplay, you like what you feel in terms of playtime, it is something that there will be no barrier of entry monetarily. You can just jump in and play when the game is fully launched, and you can take part in everything. Then beyond that, with the launch of the game, that's going to kick off the 6-week preseason as specified by the Ubisoft Forward conference a couple of days ago. And then Season 1, 6 weeks after that launch, will include a new faction, 3 maps, 3 weapons, and a 90-tier battle pass. Each season lasting about 3 months, so you can expect about 1 new weapon, 1 new map every single month, going on for, honestly, the entire first year of support. There are 4 seasons planned right now for year 1, so 12 divided by 4, 3, and of course, 3 new weapons, maps, and all coming each season. So that is something to consider going forward, but that is everything we know about the open session for XDefiant and beyond. So that's what we're gonna call it. Let me know your thoughts down below. Are you guys looking forward to XDefiant in the open session, getting some more hands-on playtime once again here with this perhaps, or for the very first time? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts below. But if you enjoyed the video, you'll find it all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it as well. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing to stay updated with all things XDefiant, other FPS content, and all that good stuff here. I'd love to have you in the community, but for now, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.